and they mostly think that it's a liberal bias, 3-1. But the interesting other data point is that we find that when we ask people, where do you like to get your news the most, it's no longer your local newspaper, your CBS Evening News or whatever, it's the internet. That's the first place they go. Now, included in that are news sites, Cleveland.com, et cetera, et cetera. But they prefer that because in addition to the news story, they can also find comment, again, that they believe, that they agree with or maybe don't agree with. But that's what's changing in the media world, perhaps because of this perceived bias.
I think I have it right that the Plain Dealer on Thursday reported that the statewide vote for president was lower than it had been in quite a number of presidential campaigns. Do you have any idea as to why that happened?
I think that's something that people are trying to puzzle out. There was this perception that we had this huge enthusiasm around the country. There was an increase. As a percentage of those who are registered in Ohio, the turnout was lower. I think there may be. I think one factor may be that it's the loss of population. People who are leaving the state. We don't purge the voting rolls on a regular basis, and if you move out of state, you don't have to call the Board of Elections and say, "I'm leaving. Take me and the family off." We may find out in 2010 when they take the census. That may be a real clue as to why turnout went down. I mean, I have a sense of Republicans, and the drop-off was 300 and some thousand from McCain, from Bush to McCain. And what was it, 40,000 from Kerry to Obama. I think with Republicans, some of that may just have been, we always talk about the enthusiasm gap. I'm sure some Republicans, especially as they looked at the last polls, just said, I'm not going out today. It's a nice thing they went to the park instead of the polls, I don't know. But John, Fritz,
I think there may be some truth to that because if you look at this rather surprising result, what you see is that the big drop-off was in Republican counties. And even among the Republican vote in the large urban counties. So that seems to be the effect. And what may be happening is that we had a fairly intensive mobilization of some groups of the electorate, but it wasn't uniform. And so the overall, so you can have the perception could be correct that there was a greater mobilization, but it didn't result in a higher number of votes statewide because not all groups participated in that. And I think the Republicans did have some trouble for lack of resources in reaching a lot of their voters.
I believe that this year's presidential election was the first time that Ohioans had an opportunity to vote by mail ballot for any reason at all. And as a result, I think close to 30% of Americans, Ohioans, did vote by mail ballot. That eliminated hundreds of precincts throughout the state, the thousands of workers, but my question basically is addressed to the Plain Dealer as to whether or not the Plain Dealer would be willing to mount a campaign. You're the most important paper in Ohio, to try to follow the lead of the state of Oregon, which has all of its voting done by the absentee ballot system, and thereby saves millions of dollars to the taxpayers of the state of Oregon.
I would say probably not, because I don't know that, Oregon has had some success with that, and I think when it's been suggested to do it here, there might be some smaller local elections that I think it might make some sense in. School issues, again, sort of community-based or single community things. I think there's some questions, though, on a state as large as Ohio and as diverse as to how it would work. There are a lot of people, if you think there was a lot of people concerned about vote fraud and the potential for vote fraud, which I thought was hugely overstated, but if you think it existed with the current system, if you had a system where everybody voted by mail, I think even people who will say there's not much vote fraud will tell you that in an absentee system, the chances that go up. So I mean, I think we'd have to be we're a long way from being convinced that that's a good idea. Now, for people who've made up their minds early, I think it was a great thing. It probably was one of the reasons that it was such a smooth functioning day on Wednesday, or Tuesday. Well, Wednesday they didn't have to function, that was so smooth. I think one of the reasons that it was because, a quarter to a third, depending on how you're counting, of people did vote early. I think that helps. It takes some of the, it's a good pressure release for people who know how they're going to go. I don't know. And there's part of me that's just kind of, I really like going to the polls on Tuesday in November, especially on a day like this one that we just had that was so just beautiful. But even when it's sleeting like it often is, there's something about this, some people call it the civic religion of going out and seeing your neighbors at the polls and walking in there. That, not to sound like I'm Norman Rockwell or something, but I'd really hate to see us lose that as a country.
I grew up in Portland, so I spent 35 years in Oregon voting by mail in the end. But what you say, Joe, is exactly right. It's a very different state. Out there, when they started, they only had 2 million people or so in the state population. Now they've got 3. But compared to Ohio, it's so simple. You really only have one big city, and you have such a diverse population here that is so different, and the political culture here is so dramatically different than it is there, that it works there, but I can't imagine it working here for any number of different reasons.
I think our time has been exhausted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland Forum, we've been listening to a panel discussion on the 2008 election. We want to thank our 3 speakers who've done a terrific job today. I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and this forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.